Hello guys, in this video I'm going to show you how you can create an internet speed meter using JavaScript. So as you can see, when I click the test internet speed, it gives us an average download speed of our internet. And we're gonna use vanilla JavaScript and CSS, no plugin or framework. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, I'm going to my file manager and create a new folder. So let's say file new folder, and I'm going to call it internet speed meter. And for now I'm going to close this one and this also, and open the new folder with VS Code. Okay, first thing we'll need is a index.html, so let's create that. We'll also need a style.css and a main.js. Okay, now let's create the basic markup. So we can simply say exclamation mark tab, and we're going to link our CSS and JavaScript file here. So we can say link to style.css, and in link the JavaScript also, so say script source equals to main.js. Okay, let's open it up with our live server. Okay, let's do the markup first. So we had a button, so let's create the button, and it says test internet speed. So in the CSS, let's style that. I want to center everything, but before that, let's remove this little white space that we have. So we can simply say target everything and set the margin and padding to none. So we can say margin to 0 and padding to 0 as well. Okay, now I want everything to be centered in the middle. So we are going to say body to have a display of flex. Okay, we can add some font family, no problem. Let's say display with flex, and we're gonna say the justify content to center and align items to center as well. But you will see this is centered horizontally but not vertically. So what we can say, that is because our body does not have enough height. So we can say HTML and body, both of them to have a height of 100%. Okay, now it is centered both horizontally and vertically. Okay, let's style our button. So we can say button to have a border of none and outline to none. So we are removing the border and outline. The outline is when we click here, we see a outline, sometimes a black border. So we can say the outline to none as well. Now we're gonna say the padding to be something like 1 em. I accidentally closed it. Okay, let's give it some border radius. So let's say a border radius of 3 pixel, and we're gonna set the background color to be so the background color should be a blue. Let's say blue, and let's get some better color. So let's try this. Okay, good enough. So let's set the color to white, and I'm gonna set the font weight to bold, and text transform to uppercase. Okay, that should be it for our button. And now we also had a progress bar, so let's create that progress bar. So we can say dot. Okay, the progress bar. So let's now style it in our CSS. So our progress bar will have a height of 10 pixel and a width of, let's say, 300 pixel. So 300 pixel, and let's give it some background color. We can see white, so let's say a little darker, like so. Okay, now they are side by side, but we want to be over and under, so we can say the flex direction to be column. flex dash direction to column. And now if we save it, as you can see, it is on top of each other. So let's give it some margin bottom. So we can say margin bottom to be, let's say 330 pixel. Okay, good enough. So we also want some border radius. So we can say border radius of 5 pixels should be enough. Okay. And inside the progress bar, we'll have a progress. So we can say dot progress progress. Let's copy this. And now let's style that as well. So dot progress bar dot progress, and it will have height as the parent. So we can say height to be 100%. And for now, just say the width to be something like 50%. We'll change that later. And the background color should be same as our button. So okay. Also set the border radius to 10 pixel. And if you want, we can add some box shadow. So we can say box shadow to be something like 0 pixel from the x-axis, 3 pixel from the y-axis, 10 pixel blur, and the color should be, let's try copying this and see how it looks. Okay, it's too dark, so let's try to lighten it up even more. Okay, now it's looking good. And now we also have a text, so we can say dot speed text. Oops, speed text. So just for now, let's just say 200 kbps. Okay, let's copy the class. Now we'll give it a font size of 2 em. So let's say font size to be 2 em, and font weight to be bolder. So let's say font weight to be bolder, and color will be same blue color. So, and also give it a margin bottom of 30 pixel. And finally, since this progress bar will have different width as the internet speed begins, so we can do a transition here to make it look better. So we can say transition to width, because that is what's gonna change to something like 0.15 second. And that should be all our HTML and CSS. So just remove this. Now in JavaScript, the way we will going to measure our internet speed is we're going to use an image, and we'll see how long it takes for the image to load. So let's have an image. So I'm going to copy the image from my previous project. So this is the one. So let's copy it. And one thing here is you want image to be a bit bigger, so something like 1 megabyte or 2 megabyte, because the bigger the image is, the easier it will be to the more convenient it will be to measure the internet speed. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, first let's target our button. So say const button equals to document.querySelector button, and we're gonna add an click event listener. So we can say button dot add event listener click. When it's clicked, we want to run this function. So we can say, and for now let's just say console log. So console dot log clicked. Okay, let's open up our console. As you can see, it says button click. Now we are going to create a function called load image that will give us the load time of an image. So let's say function load image. So first we're going to create a new image. So we can say let image equals to new image object. So we're going to create a new image object. Now the image has Okay, first we have to set the source of the image, so we can say image.source equals to, as we know we have copied this test.gif to our folder, so we can say /test.gif. Now image has a onload method, so we can say image.onload. Onload will be this function, so when the image is loaded, this function will be executed. So we can simply just console log image loaded. So if we now click it, it says clicked, but let's call this function instead of console logging. So if you click it, okay, we have some error, so let's see what is that. Okay, it should be only source equals to. Now let's see, as you can see it says image loaded, but when we want to know how long it took for the image to load, so we're gonna say start time equals to this will give us the current time in milliseconds. So if we console log the start time, as you can see it gives us the current time in millisecond. Now we also want to get the current time once the image is loaded, so we can say let end time equals to date.now. So when we are first calling the function, we're getting the start time, and once the image is loaded, we're getting the end time. So the amount of time the image took to load is simply going to be start time minus end time. So we can actually end time minus start time. So we can say end time minus start time. So if we now click on this test internet speed, we get 7, but if we click again, we are getting 170. Now what happening is the test.gif is sometimes getting cached, so that's why the image is loading faster. So what we can say is simply add a question mark here and say plus, and we can say something like parse int math.random times, so it will give us a random number between 0 to 10,000. So now we are getting the proper load speed. So okay, let's see what's next. Now we want to we want this function to return us the in time, sorry, the time the image took to load. So if we simply say return this won't work. Let's see. So we can say let load time equals to this, and now if we console log this, it gives us undefined because the loading takes some time, so just returning won't work. What we have to say is we have to use promise. So we're going to say return, and we are going to return a new promise. So we can say new promise, it will take resolve and reject, and what we're going to do is simply put this inside that. So once the image is loaded, then we're going to simply say resolve. We're going to set the amount of time it took to load the image, and the image can also have an error, so we can say image dot on error equals to function. If there is an error, we're simply going to reject it with the error. So now instead of calling the load time like this, we can create a async function, and we're gonna say await load time, load image. It looks like we have an error. Let's see what is that. It should be async. So now if we click, we can see the load time. Let's delete this console log, and now we are seeing the load time properly. Now another thing that we need to do is convert this load time to our download speed. So how we're going to do that? So to do that, first we would need the size of this GIF. So we are simply going to go to our file explorer. Let's open up that project and go to the properties, and you will get the file size in bytes. So let's simply copy that, and let's minimize this. So we can say const size equals to, so this is our file size. This is our file size in bytes. So we want to convert it to bits. So we can simply multiply it by 8 and it will give us the size in bit. Now we want to create another function. So let's say function that will get the loads internet speed or load speed. So we can say get load speed. And this will also be an asynchronous function. So let's say async. And here we're gonna say let load time equals to await load image. Now we know the load time of our file, and we also know the size of our file. So we can simply say let speed underscore bps or bytes per second, speed in byte per second. It will simply be size divided by load time, and we want to convert that to kbps. So we can say speed underscore kbps to speed underscore bps divided by 1024, because 1024 bits makes up 1 kilobit. Okay, but here is a problem. So we know that sometimes the image gets cached. So what happens if this image gets cached? In that case our load time can be 0. And what happens if we say size divided by 0? Now divided by 0 will give us infinity. So we don't want infinity. So just to avoid that, we're gonna say if load time is less than 1, we're simply going to say load time equals to 1. This will prevent the infinity error. So now we can simply return our speed in mbps. So let's say return speed underscore kbps, and here let's say instead of load image we can say speed equals to await get load speed. So get load speed, and we can say console log speed. So let's see what happens. Now we get the download speed in kbps. Now instead of just running the test one, we can run it a bunch of times. The more we run the speed, the more we run the test, the more accurate our result will be. So let's create a variable called something like const test count. So the number of times we want to run the test. So let's say we want to run the test 100 times. So we can say for, so we want to run our test 100 times, and at the end we want to get the average of our speed. To get the average, we need to get the speed we get from each test. So we can say let tests, or let's say speeds, or let's say test results initially it will be an array, and after each result we want to get the speed. So we can say let speed equal to await get speed, and we want to push the speed to our result. So now we have to get the average speed. So we can create a function called function get average speed. So get avg speed. So we know the speed of the average of three number, let's say 13, 34 and 350 will be 13 plus 34 plus 350 divided by 3, because we have three numbers here. So To get the average of our test speed, first we have to get the sum of all the tests. So we can say let sum equals to our test speeds or test results as we called it. So we're gonna say reduce a plus b and initialize with 0, so it will simply give us the sum of all the test speeds, and we want to divide it by the length. So we can simply say return sum divided by test results dot length. So now let's try to console.log the average speed. So we can say console.log, we're gonna say get average speed. And now if you run it, so we have an error. So console, okay, it should be console.log, and now we get the proper internet speed, average internet speed. Now let's tackle the UI. So first we need the progress bar. So we just need to capture this progress. So we can simply say in the JavaScript, so let's say const progress equals to document.querySelector.progress, and as our okay, now let's set the progress to 0 because initially it will be 0, and as the test, as we run this test, we want to set the progress bar's width to that. So we're gonna say progress bar dot style dot width equals to, it should be I plus 1, because in this for loop the value of I will be 0 to 99 and not 1 to 100. So we're simply adding 1 to here and divided by the test count and adding and multiplying it by 100, so it will give us the percentage, and we're setting the width to that. So let's see what happens if we say, if we click this. As you can see, we get a progress bar and we get our internet speed. So now we simply have to show it in here. So we're gonna copy this, and we can target that in our JavaScript. So we can say const speed text equals to document.querySelector, and it has a class of speed text, and we simply have to say is dot inner text equals to average speed, and we can say plus kbps. So let's see. Now it only gives us the speed after the test is run, but if we simply put it inside the for loop, it will give us the speed as the tests are being run. So like so. Now we don't want this many decimal numbers, so we can simply say get average speed to 2 fixed. So we only want a maximum of two digits after this decimal. So up to this. Let's see what happens if we click the test now. Okay, as you can see, now it is working as desired, and we can increase the test count to even more, like 1000. Now it is taking more time for the tests to run, but the speed will be more accurate. If you want to test the upload speed, you can set up a Node.js server and upload a file to that server and see how long it takes for that file to get uploaded, and simply run these calculations again. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.